story on Newspoint. A two-day informal meeting of NATO foreign ministers is taking place in Oslo in Norway. The meeting will be chaired by NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg. Now, this informal meeting ahead of that summit in July, that meeting is taking place in Oslo in Norway. On the agenda are multiple issues. Let's in fact take a look at what these issues are that the NATO foreign ministers will be brainstorming on. On that agenda is going to be Sweden's membership bid ahead of that July summit. That's one of the issues that the foreign ministers will be deliberating upon. Russia's aggression in Ukraine, of course, is going to dominate those talks, and also shift in Norway's security policy situation. We'll talk about all these issues in a greater detail. But let's look at the last point, which is likely to be on the agenda, is the Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. Let's talk about these agendas, these likely agendas, one by one. The first one is Sweden's membership bid. Sweden, remember, wants to be part of the NATO alliance. Now, Sweden has asked for this membership, especially after the war in Ukraine began. Now, there are two countries that have objected to Sweden's membership. These two countries are Turkey and Hungary. These two countries are objecting to Sweden's membership. Now, Turkish President Erdogan was re-elected on Sunday for another 5-year term, and that has now complicated the situation. You know, Erdogan has accused Sweden of harboring what they call are members of a terror group, PKK. Erdogan says that they are harboring especially members of this Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, whom Turkey considers as terrorists. However, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told reporters in Oslo on the eve of the two-day summit that a decision on Sweden's membership is absolutely possible before the summit. So NATO chief is sounding optimistic about Sweden's membership before the July summit, but they have to get Turkey on board. Now, let's talk about the ongoing war in Ukraine. What's going to dominate the talks? The drone attacks that are right now being looked into as the Russia-Ukraine war is progressing, whether this war is now moving to a next level. So drone attacks there, that will be a key focus. Moscow is saying that these drone attacks that happened in Moscow yesterday were carried out by Ukrainian terror groups. That's what Moscow has said. Ukraine, meanwhile, has said that Moscow is carrying out drone attacks in Kyiv. There were 4 people dead, 34 injured in latest drone attack by Moscow. That's what Ukraine has claimed. 1 person has died, 2 injured in Ukrainian attack on Belgorod. That's what the Belgorod regional governor had said, that there were attacks in Belgorod in the Russian territory, which was carried out by anti-Putin groups within Russia, but they have blamed it and called it a Ukrainian attack. 1 person was killed in that attack. Now, let's talk about the Norway security policy situation, one of the other likely topics to be discussed at the foreign ministers meeting in Norway. Norway has been part of NATO since the beginning. However, what's the security situation that Norway is concerned about? Norway shares a border, a long border with Russia, a 197-kilometer border with Russia, and that's what's bothering or concerning Norway. The NATO-Norway relations are more critical now than ever. Now, the security policy situation has changed. That's what the Norwegian minister has said, particularly because of this ongoing war in Ukraine. Let's quickly turn our focus to the last point of discussion that's going to figure in this foreign ministers' informal meeting. That's about Chinese so-called aggression in the Indo-Pacific. Now, the United States has just now said hours ago that there has been an unnecessary aggression by a Chinese jet. They have released footage to back that claim. They've said that a Chinese jet intercepted US recce plane over the South China Sea, calling it an unnecessary aggressive maneuver. Now, China, remember, has declined U.S. request for defense ministers meeting. That's what Pentagon had said yesterday, that we had requested that the two defense ministers meet there in Singapore, but China has declined that. Now, China is blaming the United States for lack of communication. They are blaming the U.S. for that meeting not taking place. U.S.-China are not willing to cooperate at military levels. Is that the case? That's the question that's being asked. They are engaging diplomatically, but not at military level. So is the cooperation only limited to certain aspects and not to military level? That's the question that is being asked.